Hey everyone, Joe Manuel here. Welcome back to another video. In this one, we will be continuing on the libraries page where we will be up next working on the poses page or click in element. So as you can see on the favorites one, where we finished on our last video, we've got that all functioning well. And then this next one on the poses, what we're going to do is basically dive in, repeat what we did for the favorites in terms of, building this clickable thing, popping open this other thing, a back button, and then those poses. If we think about how we want to work with those, the best way that I came up with was to go ahead and just create a new data type for poses. That'll just help us, deal with them in their own way in the repeating group. And again, there would probably be, so let's see, there'd probably be a bunch of these if this was a real yoga app, right? In our case, I've got just two, and we're going to use file numbers for the video because it's a video showing how to get into the pose. And then we're going to use a thumb photo for the image. Okay, and one thing to note that, so if we take a look over here, when we click into the poses area here, again, there's some search functionality. There is some filtering capability. In this video, we're just going to worry about getting the poses onto the page in alphabetical order, and we're not going to worry so much about the filtering capability. We've already seen the ability to do that. Again, just like on the favorites one. And then for the searches, I think I will tackle that in a separate video for how to build that functionality out, because it's just something a little bit more advanced. So let's tackle what we can for now. And one thing that I noticed, though, in this app, if this was my yoga app, I would probably list these poses here, but then I would also back over where there's a class, I would probably say this class uses these 7, 8, 10, 15, I don't know, whatever amount of poses, and then maybe associate those. So just some thoughts as the data is being set up. Like, you could go over to a class and you could create a field, you could put poses, and then you could say that field type is yoga app poses, and it's a list of them. So that way, when you have a class, you could associate all the poses that are in that class so that people can learn them correctly. And then using and setting up your data field like this with a list of them, you could display those in a repeating group, somewhere, perhaps on that video page or on the preview page for the poses that go along with the class. So just a thought of an additional improvement that could happen. But so let's go ahead and work with these poses. I'll go ahead and create a It might be, yeah, okay. Archer's pose. So we're going to need a title as well. As a field, or let's just say name of the pose. Just going to call this yoga pose, and each record, when you have a bunch of records of yoga poses, that's when it's plural. So, okay, so let's add to this. The name is Archer's pose. And I'm going to create the thumbnails right after this. So let's go ahead and take a look at this pose. It's called the camel. So I'm just going to grab a screenshot of this. And that will be our thumbnail. Not very well named, but we're kind of doing quick and dirty at the moment. Camel pose. And do that for this one as well. Quick screenshot. Let's try and get it in this cool archer looking position. And cool. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to fill the database with just duplicates of these. The video again will be coming from downloads. Archer's pose 2. That way we can just tell that we have a couple of these as we view them on the page. Just look a little nicer. And camel pose 2. Okay, so now that we've got our data set up, let's jump over to the designer and let's go ahead and take this favorites group that we built and copy that. And then let's figure out what we can still work with here. This back button, we should just be able to copy straight up the workflow from the other one. Well, let's not worry about that for now. Let's look at the layout of this page. So we'll just give this one a heading of poses. Keep it pretty simple. And then what do we got? We've got a photo and we've got the title. So here, what we want to find is for our data, poses, and we just want to do a search for all poses, since this is just a giant list of them, sorted alphabetically, sorted by name. So for this image, we'll just want to grab the poses thumb photo and bring that up. See what we're looking at for proportions. It's actually pretty small. So I'm going to say about like that. So we've got 100 by 50. And then take these off. And then we'll just put the name here. And then we can bring up this for spacing. And again, we'll keep it in this extra group. and this group will be hidden, collapse when hidden, so that way we just have an easy way to, if we had a list of, 50 or 100 of these different poses, that we won't mess up the height of the rest of the pages with that. So if we bounce over to the library group, what we want to have happen when someone clicks this is we want to show this page. All right, going to have to refresh. And hopefully we're not at a stopping point. Okay, cool. So we just want to copy this favorites workflow for this poses. So group poses, group badges. So I'm going to look for group favorites. What do we got? Go to the page favorites. So we need to navigate to the page, the nav in this case will be poses. Then we got to go back to the poses page that we just made. Let's rename this for the poses group. And then set up our conditional so that when the URL, the nav parameter in the URL is poses, we will show off this page. Cool. So let's check it out. We should just have that up and working. So clicking into here, yep, we get to see the poses. Now nothing is displaying yet. So let's take a look at our data. Oh, interesting. Okay, so is this the repeating group? Do we maybe get the... No, this should, let's see, so we're displaying a full list. All right, so we might have to do a little debugging, because basically, as I see this, we should be getting the results that we want to see. We are doing a search for the type of content that is yoga poses. We're searching for all of them. We're displaying them as a full list, and then we're displaying the current cells, poses, thumb photo. So let's see if we can't figure out what's going on. So when you're debugging something, the best thing to do is to find the elements with unique names. So this is going to be yoga pose, repeating group. So I'm just going to copy this and then plop this into, oh yeah, we'll have to refresh so that that element comes through onto the page as that, and then we'll see if we can figure out what's going on. Okay. So here's some properties. Okay, I wonder what do we have for conditional for showing this? This element is visible on page load. This element is visible on page load. For the poses group, we are showing the poses group. See, this is poses repeating group. Data source empty, so that's an issue. Type of content empty. But that is poses repeating group. So that is this group. I don't think that's an issue. As long as this one is doing a search for data poses, where the data source is a search, and the evaluator, it searches for yoga poses, sort by name. Okay, so it's not actually telling us any results. So let's try something a little bit different in our troubleshooting. Let's change these to classes, and let's see if we can get a class to display, and then that'll at least show that this repeating group is working correctly. So we're searching for classes. Current class is thumb photo. Current cell classes, just say title. And then let's refresh that. Okay, so it's definitely something with the repeating group. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this 280 by 71. And we'll just rebuild it. It just could be some bug. It happens. Okay, so draw on a repeating group. Make it a full list. Give it 1 by 1. Let's go poses. Do a search for poses. And where are we at? 270. Center that. Okay. So let's add an image, and then this should tell us, make sure that image is drawn inside of the repeating group. Give it a dynamic value of the current cell poses thumb photo. Okay. Interesting. Interesting that showed, and then it went away. Okay, so we're going to pause here. I'm going to come back. This is some really abnormal behavior that I haven't seen, and so I'm going to figure that out, and then we're going to move forward. Okay, cool. So got it figured out, and it's just something to be aware of in your Bubble install when you are adding new data. One thing to note is it might be hard to see here. Try and zoom in on it. On these new ones, well, actually, this one we haven't got to yet. It had to do with the calendar for the practice date. But this one, the poses that we just did, privacy rules applied. So basically, that's something we're going to cover in a future video. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. So we can see now it says publicly visible here on the bottom left. So that's kind of what the issue was. And to walk you through some of the troubleshooting that I did was basically making these things a little bit bigger, dropping in some text. For example, here, this is text, outer group test. And test text inner, taking a look at those. Well, the data will show now, but just whenever you're stuck with displaying something, always just drop some text into. So I guess this OG outer group was part of the testing that I was doing. Now, obviously, those data, that data solving that, the privacy rule issue is what I just noticed that all of these other ones are listed in the correct way versus how this new data type was defined. I think it's just a recent update in Bubble where data, when you create it, will be defined with privacy rules versus without. So something to be aware of, and again, something we'll cover in a future video. So where does that bring us? Brings us back to wrapping up this video with getting our spacing set up for how we want it, and then taking these favorite icons and just deleting those from the copy and paste over, and then refreshing. So one thing we'll want to have happen here is when someone clicks the image, we'll want it to pull up the video of that pose. So very similar, right, to what we've seen before with someone pulling up from this class preview page. When someone hits play, it pulls up the video player group. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this video player group. Paste that in. Reset the positioning to 0, X and Y. And then we're going to, let's see. Yep, okay. So we're going to change this to do a search for pose. And we're going to take the yoga poses, first item. And this is going to play the parent group yoga poses video. Parent group yoga poses thumb photo. Cool. And we're not going to loop that. So what we're going to do next is going to name this pose video player. And we'll navigate that with the nav parameter equaling pose video player. So let's go ahead and set that up here in the poses group. So when this is clicked, what we want to have happen is we'll navigate to the page and send the nav parameter with pose video player. I believe it's either pose or it poses. So pose video player. Cool. So let's check that out. So that data, let's see. No, we need to display that data first. So from here, we need to have a workflow step that displays the data into this new group. So I've got this. What do I've got? So we want to display data into the pose video player. The data we want to display is the current cells yoga apps pose. And then it's going to ask that we do this. So I'll probably want to add a navigate, or no, scroll to, because if we were really far down, yep, scroll to 0. If we were really far down on a list of like 50 of these, we want it to show up at the top when we navigate through there. When we navigate from clicking one of these photos to the video. So let's check that out, and then that should do it for this poses section. So we'll click camel pose, and it does not loop. Okay, so we got to take care of that close button. So when this video player one closes, let's first take a look at that. Pause the video player and then go to class preview. So we want to, in this new one, we want to pause a video, and that is, we'll want to name this one different. So this is the pose video player. So we want to pause the pose video player, and then we want to navigate back to the there we go. So we'll want to navigate back to the pose group. So what is that conditional on this one? Poses. So we want to send that back with the nav as poses. So we'll stick here in this pose video player. It might be empty. Let's see. Or if it keeps this data in it, because that data of which video is passed through. Okay, interesting. So if we hit close here, sends us back to the poses page. If we go Archer's pose, not getting an autoplay there. How about this one? Nope. Okay. All right, so there's a little bug we'll want to look into. You know what? I know what's happening. So because we didn't rename that one correctly the first time, we're actually doing something with that other video player. So display data into pose, scroll, go to page, pose video player. Okay, so we've displayed data in the pose video player into this group. This one looks for that video and it autoplays it. Huh, so that is not working. All right, let's see what's going on. So Archer pose, oh, okay, not sure. A little bit of a bug because we did not change anything. We just did a refresh. So something to be aware of. If we do camel pose, that works. So what we've been able to accomplish in this video, and we still need a back button on this pose group. So this sends us back. And this is why, I mean, this is a fine way to build things. I mean, by just doing a little bit of work, checking it out, seeing what else needs to be fixed. Because, an alternative way would be to just simply sit there in every one of these pages and look at each element by element, which is pretty logical and honestly a very good way to design things. If we look at this one, nothing needs to happen when you have the logo. This poses stay static. This is the only clickable thing. I guess we could make this clickable as well. This current cells title. In fact, I think that's a worthwhile thing to do. But when we're on this poses group, we want to go back to the library group is our final destination for this back button. So here we want to go to library, and then in this thing, we're just going to make it the exact same. So display, data, scroll to top, go to pose video player. That's what we want to do. So let's build that workflow quick. And element action, scroll to the top, navigate to nav parameter as pose video player. Okay, so that should wrap it up. We'll do one final QA and call it good. So let's start ourselves from the library page. It's nice to already have had this this set up for us, right? We didn't have to build anything here today. We're in this video. We just click here, click into one of these poses, and then we got a video that we can back out of, again, and everything is fully functionally working. And then, like I said, for one of these classes, if you wanted to associate, down here at the bottom or info, you could make a button for poses, right? And so you could, in fact, I'm just going to show this real quick. How would this work? If you wanted to associate your pose with your classes. So I did show at the beginning of this poses. It is we can't search, but it is the data type is pose, and there's a bunch of them. And so if we go over to app data and the primary fields for pose, we want to use the name of that so that we can recognize it as a person, a human, not a computer. We don't know anything about unique IDs. It doesn't help us. So let's take this Vinyasa first class and let's give it some poses. So let's add in, what do we have for our poses names? There's an archer. We'll add an archer pose 2, and we'll add in the camel pose 1. So these are part of this class. So we'll save that. And then in our design for the class preview page, under info, I'm just gonna, let's see, how's this group collapser doing? We're gonna move that down. Under info, we're going to grab this, paste it, pull it down here, just so we can hide the poses group, bring it back up. So now it jumps into this class preview group. So we'll say poses, and then we'll add just a text list. So these will not be, so what you would do is you would create a repeating group. Why not go that far? A repeating group of poses, and do a search for poses, and then add the conditional where the name, let's see, no. Let's not do a search for poses. Let's grab the field of the classes poses. So those are the specific ones we want. We want no separator. We want full list. And then we want a working in that group, class preview. We want an image in there. And give that the dynamic data. And I'm just doing this real quick and dirty. All of this stuff should be, labeled correctly, so on and so forth. But just for the purposes of showing, this extra step that it's kind of cool to have these available if people want to do something that makes pretty good sense, right? It makes pretty good sense to show off the poses of cool. Yeah, that looks good. Just going to do a center horizontally. In fact, I think that should actually come all the way out here for the sake of any responsive stuff. Okay. So this one, we'll just give it the dynamic data, and then we'll be good. Poses, title, name, thing. So now you could add the same workflow on these. I'm not going to do that for this one. But it'll be the same as we had just done. Cool. So what do we got here? What class is this? Further Vinyasa. And we've given that one these poses. And so it shows them off. The associated ones associated with this class. So if somebody needed to... Oh, that was interesting. Somehow he hid back and it went nowhere. Oh. Try that one more time. So from this page, back. Okay. Maybe just a slight bug because we reloaded on this preview page. But cool. So we have successfully built out a poses page that contains these poses. Clickable, watch the video. So thanks for joining on this one, and I'll see y'all in the next video.